I'm not aware of what youth guarantee is.
The Youth Guarantee aims to ensure that all young people under the age of 25 years receive a good quality offer of employment, continuing education or traineeship, and all those within a period of 4 months of becoming unemployed or formally finishing their education.
Wow, that sounds amazing. It would be really nice to have a specialty just waiting for me when I finish. That sounds really good.
Okay, so let us start with the presentation. Let's hope that the other speaker will come in the meantime. Now, this is the first session of the series of online discussions, Bridge Forum, organized by the Albanian NGO, the Bridge, with the support of the Western Balkan Youth Lab of the Regional Cooperation Council, and it is also in cooperation with the ISEC, which is an association of students, a worldwide association. Although they are students focused on economics, on economic sciences, they are also very committed to intercultural dialogue and intercultural issues in a way. So therefore you view economic, which is very important, they view economic as related to humanities. I consider it very important, especially at these times. Economy is not just GDP growth or just certain statistics or numbers, or it is much more than that. The question of lowering prices going up or down, or the stock exchange going up or down. It is related, first of all, to people, to human beings. Now, and this is the focus of the ISEC and also of our own association. It is focus. The target of our discussions are not only as a public but also as topics to be discussed. Is youth. Youth, because it is in the Western Balkans, it is a vulnerable community. It is a vulnerable community, and at the same as we can see by certain statistics, certain figures that we have. For instance, in order to have an idea about the situation, the average regional youth unemployment rate in 2020 is 35.1%, which is more than double than in the European Union. Also, there is a large gap in youth labor force participating between activity rates. For young men, it is average 36.5% against a rate for young women 23.3%. 25% of youth from the Western Balkans are not in unemployment, education, and training. So this is a very sad situation, and that's why we can say that it is a vulnerable group. But at the same time, it is related to the perspective. For both these reasons, we are focusing on youth and on its problems. In this session, the first session, is focused on, the topic is youth and economy. The panelists are Tanja Miščević, which is Deputy Secretary General of the Regional Cooperation Council. She was head of the negotiation team for the accession of Serbia into the European Union during 2013-2019, and she is professor at the Faculty of Political Science in Belgrade. From 2005 to 2009, she has been director of the European Integration Office of the government of Serbia. The other panelist is Igor Štiks, born in Sarajevo in 1997. So he was a teenager when the war started, and he fled with his family to Croatia. And now currently he lives in Belgrade. He taught in Edinburgh and in political science in Edinburgh, and the Faculty of Media and Communication he is teaching now in Belgrade. He has published several volumes of about politics. One of them with Srećko Horvat, and he is also a well-known writer. His novels are published in several languages of the world. Now, let us and at the end of the presentations, the attendants could ask questions to the panelists. Now, hoping that the other panelists will join us in the meantime, let's start with Professor Igor Štiks. Thank you, Igor.
Thank you, Bashkim. Thank you for inviting me to this panel, and I would be happy to share my thoughts about the questions of course, economic or socio-economic conditions of the youth in the Balkans. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share screen to show just one photo. Is that possible?
It should be possible. Down of your screen there is a management panel, and the fourth one is share screen. Then you can pick from there your desktop.
All right, I can. All right, okay. I'll try to do this. Just a second. I'll try to show you a very interesting thing I discovered. Now let me see. I have to. That might tell you about about how things change for the worse and where are we with this today. Now, so can you see now this photo?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, so it's as you can see, obviously I need to explain what it is. It was apparently the 5th billion human on the earth was born in Zagreb in 1987. So the UN, United Nations Fund for Population Activities, brought this meter, population meter, to Belgrade, to the president then of the Yugoslav government. And basically the meter is there calculating the world population. You see it shows here more than 8 billion. So obviously it was slightly over the top and it shows the country population. Now this was recorded in 2019. The country population, it's Yugoslavia. And it says 28 million. So obviously by now, by the projections of that time, there will be 29 million inhabitants, say, of Yugoslavia in 2022. Well, obviously, you know that the result is that actually we today in the region of the former Yugoslavia, we have like 21 million. So that's the estimate. Most probably it's even less than 21 million. Maybe these projections were overly optimistic, these demographic projections, but generally we would have expected that today in this area there will be 26 million people, 27 million people. So obviously we have 6-7 million missing Either they were not born, or simply people fled or decided to leave the region. So I'm starting with this demographic fact because it tells you all about our projections at one point, according to the available data. Obviously, population data in '87 did not think about the breakdown of the system after 1989. Obviously, could not know that that in the 90s and in 2000s we are going to go through enormous, tremendous economic transformation, not only of this region but of entire post-socialist Europe. That the result will be more poverty and also population decline, huge social inequalities, and that basically, of course, it couldn't calculate things called war when they happen and when they destroy the existing infrastructure. And not only that, but as we can see today in Ukraine, the very social tissue of a society destroys human lives, human relationship for the years to come. Now, I started with this in order to open up this discussion on economy and the youth, with one important question that I always ask my students, or that I'm trying to convince my students to find answer to, is, do you know your place in the world? And I'm always astonished by the lack of basic economic knowledge. Look, I'm not an economist myself. I'm a writer, I'm a political theorist, but we are all forced to deal with economic matters. As Bashkim explained, it's not just the numbers, it's human lives that are behind these numbers. And the shocks that are now global, not only regional, not only Western Balkans, not only post-socialist Europe, whatever, but the global, affect directly the lives, our lives, and as I always say to my students, their lives. The difficulty to understand abstract processes such as globalization, to understand how it affects you, is sometimes it's a problem. It's a problem because we are not able to process this information. We are not able to really grasp to what extent an event in China, to what extent drought in Taiwan that reduced the production of semiconductors, as we all know, chips, yeah, and in the context of the pandemic would basically stop an entire industries, such as, say, automobile industries, and will push us furthermore into the crisis of prices, demand, supply, and so on. So the question is, of course, we do trying to find our place in the world from the position of the Balkans. Of course, obviously, we accept technology. We are using it right now. We all have smartphones and so on. But do we actually know what is really happening? Now, what defined the lives of my students? So that's the question I'm asking myself. Obviously, many things defined my life. So I start with me and then we'll go back to my students. Number one was '89. Yeah. So the huge, tremendous change. For us in the former Yugoslavia, at that point, it was a celebratory moment that the Berlin Wall fell down. So now everybody will be free to travel like we were free to travel. Nobody could really know the consequences of this event. We will get to know them soon, already in 1990, 91, with the so-called democratization that brought the country into chaos and also into war. So obviously there was a war. And then what we thought in the 90s when the war happened, and as Bashki mentioned, I was a refugee in Croatia and lived there. We were just hoping that we're gonna catch up. Everyone else is going forward. Europe is getting united. It's a brave new world of shared liberal values. Only the former Yugoslavia, that part that's been isolated slightly by, in order to prevent the conflict from spreading, will be able to join this wonderful world once everything is over. So, well, it took us 10 years to get out of this chaos of wars throughout the territory of former Yugoslavia, in order to propel us directly into the neoliberal world of certain economic dogmas, which is of course based on a certain idea of free market economy, on invisible hand of the market that will sort everything, on the trickle down promise that, okay, although some people are getting insanely rich, there will be something for the poor as well. And of course, on the idea that privatizations of everything is a way forward, for the markets and the societies and so on. So as I was doing my studies in France and in the States, things, the first signs of trouble were already there. And obviously you remember 2008, the crash, financial crash that happened in the States when I was there, observing for a couple of years a madness of the so-called subprime credit market. And that changed lives of millions, and we are still under the shadow of this debacle of neoliberal economics without knowing how to find a way out. Now, by a sheer number of coincidences, I ended up in Britain, and now I'm teaching in Belgrade, between Belgrade and Ljubljana. I got back to this region, so I'm one of these who did come back. I didn't think I would, but I did come back. And of course, I can see the region that is in this respect, and socially and economically, in a very, very bad state. What is actually happening with this region? Now, some of you will recognize in what I'm saying, of course, the world system theory of the core capitalist country, and then semi-periphery around them, and then the periphery. Now, allow me to use it for the purpose of our discussion as well. Obviously, speaking about Yugoslavia in 89, 90, it was a country like many other countries who had the economic crisis, but it was generally seen as a semi-peripheral country, very close to the very center of the capitalist economy, namely Italy, and then Austria, Germany, and so on, and connected with these economies. Today, the post-Yugoslav states, and also other Balkan states, are obviously somewhere between semi-periphery and periphery. So semi-periphery would mean that you still have something to offer to the core countries in terms of services, educated people, educated youth, that you still have some kind of a production, although it's sort of getting reduced. But the peripheral the destiny is that you can only offer natural resources for exploitation. And so therefore we are getting there. So from semi-peripheral countries, we are getting more and more into periphery, since obviously services that we could offer being sucked in by rich countries, especially Germany. What can you do as a young person here? You can maybe work for a call center that been obviously delocalized from Germany or France or UK here. If you're an IT master, you can also obviously join the global economy, getting untaxed money here and spend it here. Those are the better destinies.
Hello, is it okay now?
Or you can basically move to these rich countries. Now, the problems with the exploitation of natural resources is that this is everything you can offer to world economy. So what Balkans could offer now to the world economy, apart from this tiny fraction that could get jobs by staying here, say, is of course exploitation of rivers, of woods, of minerals. You are witnessing across the Balkans this whole craziness and drive to build small hydroelectric plants and so on. So basically use the rivers that Balkans still have to produce energy. And that already had enormous ecological consequences, and luckily people started to fight against it. You might be aware of what basically shook the regime, the current Serbian regime, was so-called the Rio Tinto, so the big Australian-American corporation that discovered in Serbia a very important mineral, namely lithium, and that got all the permission to start exploitation of these minerals in Western Serbia that would devastate that region. So what happened is that people rebel, and this was the first time when this current regime showed the weakness. Now, can we stop it just by protesting? How can we be placed in the global economy? And at the same time, of course, preserve nature and try to figure out the ways of stopping people emigrating. So it is important to keep in mind this sort of shift to the peripheral destiny in the world economy. We'll come to that, how could we fight against it and whether this will be successful. In the remaining 5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, I will try, of course, to tackle even more the question of youth and education, since I've been educator here myself. Obviously, the question is, 10 years ago, the student movement organized the occupation of university in Croatia. And that was seen as the beginning of what we call here the new left in the Balkans. Yeah? The new left that is having, that is kind of joining hands with these type of movements in Spain, in America, across the world, in the wake of after the financial crisis of 2008. The demand was simple: stop the commercialization of higher education. Education must be free, or education is already paid by the taxes. Education must be public. So they fought and managed to get many concessions. After that, the student movement developed also in Ljubljana, in Skopje, in Belgrade, and so on. These students will join hands with the movements fighting for the commons, especially urban commons, fighting against the gentrification and the devastation of urban space, and then devastation of nature. And all of that through 10 years will result in some significant political gains for a new player on our scene that we call the New Left. The New Left entered the parliament in Slovenia. The New Left elected a mayor of Zagreb, a major thing, a major city last year. And now it's modestly showing some gains in Serbia itself, that after 30 years is having an actor that at least is trying to offer a different perspective on how to run society. Now, the problem with education is that in the meantime, there's no point in kind of fighting for a free education any longer, and we don't have a strong student movement. The problem is that we got a reduced number of students, and that most places at state universities are for free and remain unfulfilled, remain empty. Therefore, even if once you have the money to fund education, obviously you are not going to have enough students. The problem, of course, is of bad demography, and on the other hand, of exile. People who are seeing their destiny somewhere outside of the region. And now, someone who lived in the exile, I have to say certain things. It is true that for the most of the youth in the Balkans, the situation is dire and difficult. On the other hand, there's something which I would call, complexities of exile. People are moved to go to Ireland or Germany, especially if they have, say, Croatian passport, are moved by a prospect of better life. And of course, who could blame them? They are right. The question is whether that better life will come. And of course, what do you lose when you move out? And of course, I'm not saying this in order to convince you not to move out from the Balkans. I did it myself. But simply to be aware, again, in what type of destiny you go, moved and guided by the idea that somewhere else life is much better, or at least you're going to live in a normal country. When it comes to administration and so on, maybe even politics, that might be the case. The problem is, of course, that once you move, you lose something what Pierre Bourdieu called famously cultural capital and social capital. You Your diploma from some godforsaken university in the Balkans doesn't mean anything. Extraordinary intelligent people become waiters or become, you know, basically taxi drivers. That doesn't mean anything that you are an engineer or that you got a degree in languages, let alone in literature or philosophy. You lose this. You lose also social network that you build throughout your life. And social networks are the people you know, is also knowing where to knock on the doors in order to do something. So you get an extraordinary reduced life, and that's the life of refugees, of exiles, or emigrants, or immigrants, whatever you want to call them. So therefore, you have to be really, really motivated in order to fight for 3, 4, 5 years in order to get to the level where you might live a dignified life. So although many people are jealous or envious of those who manage to leave the Balkans, I'm not. In this respect, I understand through what kind of ordeal they'll have to go in order to live under better circumstances, or in order to achieve a certain life they would like to live. Now, obviously, the dreams cannot be always fulfilled. And once you leave, and after that, you lose contacts with the former countries, and then the whole and classical thing that's been described in literature starts, which is, of course, not finding your place in the world, or is, as Edward Said would say, being out of place. So our destiny is being out of place. Now, going from personal to back to the topic of our discussion, the question is, of course, how things will develop. So I'll offer 3 scenarios, and then we can further discuss it. Now, one would be, of course, that we get more of the same, which means the deterioration of the situation we have is going to get worse. More of the same means worse because of the trends we also mentioned here. The second scenario, that we go more into Latin American mood of peripheral countries that do have interesting cities and very smart and educated urban population, but whose economy is dependent. And it's also depending on extractivism, as I said, exploitation of mineral resources or the richness of the country. It usually creates a very unstable situation, very unstable class position, a very unstable political climate that often results in dictatorships or civil wars or unrests or breakdowns of the system every 20, 30 years. Just look at Argentina. The third scenario, of course, would be improvements. But how to improve? Politicians are speaking still exactly the same neoliberal language of direct foreign investments and so on, that they are basically managing to get by giving enormous concessions, even subventions, like they do in Serbia, for all foreign firms coming here. So basically, this is what is called this Latin American model. You have an oligarchy in power. They control through the repressive system the population gets exploited, and those who can leave, they leave. So obviously, imagine what's happened in 20 or 30 years time. But let's speak about the improvements for the conclusion, or something that we hope for. It has to deal with investments into social reproduction. And social reproduction obviously is not GDP, is not that some people will get filthy rich and you might get some crumbles from the table. Improvements in social reproduction means improving social life of your population, building hospital, kindergartens, schools, and providing a decent and dignified life for people who happen to be born here or who happen to come to live here. And this is exactly what most of people would prefer, not being rich in your countries, but simply have a possibility to lead a dignified and decent life in your country, and of course to feel that actually there is a perspective for you and your children. Obviously, that's a minimal social program we would need in the Balkans if we are ever to imagine a better future. Thank you for now.
Thank you,
Igor, for your brilliant presentation. Let me just add let me just make a small comment on what you said about commercialization of education. It is, of course, in relation to the students' movement in Croatia, it is, of course, the commercialization when you make university. To enter university, you have to pay an amount of money which is that would be inaccessible to most of the population. But there is also, I would say, another aspect which is important with respect to the commercialization of your education. What is called market-oriented education, and on the reasoning that the education should be market-oriented, the humanities are obliterated and lose their specific weight in the education. They become second-hand, and they don't. They are not evaluated and don't have prestige. Now, before leave the floor to Professor Tanja Miščević, I would ask our host to play a small video. Please. A video that was provided kindly to us by Western Balkans Youth Lab. I think it is a bit longer, right? The video. Thank you. Now I would leave the floor to Professor Tanja Miščević. As I said, she's Deputy Secretary General of Regional Cooperation Council. She is professor at the University of Belgrade, professor of political science, and also she has contributed and participated importantly in the process of negotiations for the integration of Serbia into the European Union. Please, Professor Miščević.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me, as I had a lot of problems to connect. Deep apologies to all of you for being a little bit late, especially to Professor Štiks, was not there at the beginning of your speech, but I got it and completely agree with you. And you just had the opportunity to see a small video of the Western Balkan Youth Policy Lab, which actually gave you some of the data that I wanted to also to start picking on what Professor Štiks actually was speaking about, putting everything in larger environments, so both economically, socially, economically, but also politically in terms of the developing the states or the national authorities in the region that we are living in. So my job now is to continue talking about this, putting the emphasis on trying to find the answer why actually the situation is like this. So let me repeat some of the data that you saw on that video because they are frightening. 2 million young people are ready to leave immediately from the Western Balkan region. That's a huge number. And that is something that the Western Balkan, the region that we are living in, cannot survive. It's not the issue of their decision to leave, but actually to be pushed by somebody because of the wars, atrocities, and everything else, but because their feeling of not having a secure, safe, and normal life, let's call it like this, a normal life in the region that they are living in. Let me give you additional numbers. Why I think that this should be also frightening, not only for you, young people, us, your teachers, professors, but also to the states. And this is a huge loss for them. They are, together with your parents, they're investing a huge amount of money in your education, health, and everything else. So the cost of that type of migration amount up to be 2.5 billion euro per year. But it's a spooky. It's a really really something that should be considered very heavily by the governments, and they are doing that. Second part of my some of my parts of my speech will actually be dedicated what has been done up to now to give us some rooms for thinking optimistically in terms where we can find a better place for all of you, for you young people living here and today, not in the future, in the Western Balkan as a region. So what is the major problem? The major problem for sure is the non-employment rate. The unemployment rate here is twice as high as it is in the European Union. So here in the Western Balkan as average, and how do we know those data? Because actually we are following the data coming from the statistical offices of all Western Balkan states, but also we are doing something which is extremely helpful for all of us and also researchers, which is the Balkan Barometer. So we ask people about their perceptions. So we combine all of those things. As twice as high as it is in the European Union, so 35 in EU, the average rate of unemployed people is 17. You have to have in mind also that the COVID hit us, as you can imagine, tremendously. But according and globally estimated by International Labour Organization, young people, which means the generation 15 to 25, can experience even higher unemployment than adults as a result of the pandemic. So For the adults, for the older people, 3.7 unemployment, 8.7% of unemployment for the young people. So unemployment is definitely, or being not certain about the jobs, is one of the most important reasons. Why am I sharing those data? Not to spook you additionally, but actually that people are aware. And the first thing that you have to have in mind when you need to do some activity is to be aware of how huge the problem is. The second important issue, though, is something that Professor Štiks actually pointed out, but let me point it even more, and this is the participation of the young people. So according to what we heard, they are not satisfied, more than 90% of them, with their own participation in what? Not in politics, but creating policies, which is different. So the public policies, which are created in each and every of the national authorities, are not open towards the opinion, the needs. They are not mainstreaming youth within the creation of both the policies, but also budget. That's the final results when there is a creation of the policy. Why that is important, not only at the national level, but also at the international level, because that gives the possibility for the young people to presently include into managing or leading some of those policies. And all of our economies, all of our countries are actually going towards the membership to the European Union, where that is the model, that is the way that as a liberal democracy, as things are supposed to be developed. But let me also use this opportunity, as I told you, to share with you how we solved some, or we are trying, of course. I'm coming from the Regional Cooperation Council. I'm not sure that you guys know much about, if anything, about the Regional Cooperation Council. We do exist for many years now. Since the end of the 90s, it has been the call for regional cooperation. Why particularly for our region? As we had 90s. So we had to re-establish the understanding and also respect and trust among each other. So the Regional Cooperation Council, which has a headquarters in Sarajevo, is the umbrella organization, political organization of each and every of the political, but also economic processes within the Western Balkan region as such. And we are doing many things, but I would like also to put the emphasis on something which we particularly are doing for the young people. And also Mr. Štehu mentioned that. That is the video that you saw at the very beginning. This is Western Balkan Youth Policy Lab. This is our the newest project among our projects that we are affiliated with, headed by Ognjen, who is here somewhere, following us very closely, and his very young but also energetic team that you had a chance to see in this video. What is their goal? Their goal is to work with the national councils, youth national councils in the region, not in order only to connect them, but also to strengthen their work. In what respect? Exactly what I said, to help them to empower young people to work with the national authorities in including them in the creation of the policies from the very beginning, from the very roots, to shape the national policies in terms they to be in accordance with the young people needs. And that is a very good development that we saw since the establishment and since the beginning of the project. They now work in each and every of the capitals of the Western Balkan states with the focusing now on some of the specific policies where particularly the youth empowerment is needed. It's the employment, as you can imagine, but also youth health. That's not something that we within the RCC are not even the project envisaged, but that has been asked by young people, that the youth health is needed to be tackled as one of the repercussion out of the COVID, the repercussion out of the unemployment, and for their normal and good participation in not only in policies, but also in everyday life. More on this we can discuss for sure, but let me also give you what we are giving, as a possibilities to help to the young people, not seeing them as the future. You are not the future, you are present. I am past, but you are taking over the activities. I'm here only to help you with my experience and to support you to learn more, and that is what we are actually doing. I'm sure that you heard about the common regional market. So the goal is of our countries to become members of the European Union, each and every of the Western Balkan 6. But it's not easy. It's not something that can be done overnight. Yet there is a lot of obligation to fulfill. So the common regional market is actually the idea, while working on becoming a member of the European Union, introducing European standards in all areas, to start establishing the regional market. So the regional ground, which will be based on the EU standards for trading, but not only trading, introducing all 4 freedoms, free movement of goods, services, and capital, but also people, which means that one of our very important agenda is the mobility. That's where the issue of the mutual recognition of qualification, mutual recognition of diplomas, and traveling with the ID is situated. And why is that important for you? Because it might be, and unfortunately it is the case, that although our diplomas will need additional approval in the European or in the other parts of world universities, here we are working on mutual recognition of our certificates, finalizing the high schools or the craft schools, specialized schools in that respect, or the universities, in order to start working. So wherever I am with my university diplomas and degrees, being that Tirana, I can start working same condition and same criteria as I was finished my universities or my degrees in Albania proper, which is of course extremely important for finding out some of the issues of the unemployment. It goes also further. The research area is one of the activities that we are doing. So each and every of the economies of the 6 is very small research areas, but 6 together creates a better position for researching and even producing the results of those research. The third important element is digital. We are the most known because of the roaming-free agreement. I'm sure that you are aware of this one. That means that wherever you are in the region, if you have the mobile phone number from any of the national operator, you will not going to have the roaming fee, which is extremely important for mobility, for exchange programs, even for, of course, business people. Establishing businesses all around the region. Digital is one of the aspects that we are putting the emphasis in, because putting the emphasis on the digital skills is one upgrading, of course, the digital skills is one of the most important things, and especially the way that we are discussing now prove to be that digital is gaining the importance and possibilities. To cut this long story short, in order, of course, to have enough time to discuss, not only to listen to us. Young people here in the region, again, according to the Balkan Barometer, are the one that are promoters of the European values. 70% of young people, that means age 18 to 24, are pro-EU membership of the region. Not because only they see the possibility to move freely or for a better life, better wages, but because of the values. And that is something that, for me, idealistic one, really counting of the importance of values in life means really a lot. But also for the state administrations, it's very difficult to work with the governments, as you can imagine. If you ever had a chance to deal with them, you have to provide them a very strong argument. And we are trying to do that, saying that actually the common regional market, one step towards the membership to the European Union, so our own market towards the common European market, will add 2.5% of the GDP to our cumulatively, that means for the Western Balkan, which is not a small amount of money. That is extremely important. But without young people, and if those 2 million, if you among those 2 million leave the region, as we said, as we started this discussion, that will actually ruin all the ideas for the development of the region. And that is so obvious that nobody can explain further to you. That is why we are here today to discuss with you, and not only today, but to discuss with you very openly and frankly, what do you see as the huge or major problems or impediments for you living in the region, and more importantly, how we can help in that respect, having in mind that we are trying to do something, being an educator or being somebody who is doing things operationally on the daily basis, how we can help trend to turn in terms of providing a positive impetus for the development of all of us, region, but equally each and every of you. Thank you very much. I am ready, of course, for the comments, questions, and the dialogue.
Bashkim, please unmute.
Thank you very much, Professor Miščević. I would like to thank you because it was very clarifying and very giving a clear and complete picture of the region with respect of the youth situation. There was something that you mentioned, and also Professor Štiks mentioned, the problem, the phenomenon of brain draining of youth from the region. This would be the topic of the next session of discussion of Bridge Forum. So, with your intervention, you both highlighted this the fact that this that our topics are related one with the other, And this is also good for our project as a whole. Now, one thing I would ask the question to Professor Miščević, but first, no, let us listen to a question from Ergisa Hasanbeliu. She has a question for Professor Miščević. Please.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you, Mr. Igor and Ms. Tanja, for taking your time to share with us your experience and your journey related with youth and economy. I really found very powerful the expression that Ms. Tanja said before, that we are not the future, we are the present. And we are always taught, I'm talking for Albanian reality, that we are the future, and somehow in our subconscious, we feel like our actions will be marks in the future, so we don't take a lot of actions in the present. In this perspective, from the practical point of view, I would ask for your recommendations from experience in your countries. How may youngsters and youth of Tirana and Albania collaborate more with governmental bodies in creating policies which involve and make us feel more like engaged and affected from the policies created?
Thank you very much, Ergisa, to pick up on something which really may sound as a type of sentence that we are saying just for saying, but I strongly believe in this. For me, young people are actually have the values today. Whatever you are doing today, even learning today, will bring the fruits. Not only in future, but also today. You are coming from Tirana, which is the capital, youth capital, extremely powerful and message that we are very proud to have in the region. This is the first time that some of the capitals in the region is the youth capital. Why is that? It's not only because Albanian population is the youngest in the region or even in the Europe, but because they see also the potential, how you can help. In that respect, I'm not saying, when saying participating in policy, I'm not saying participating in politics. That means not being a member of the political parties, which is, of course, your choice. Everybody is choosing, but participating in policy means something else. That means that you are organized either into student parliaments at the university or the youth councils, the youth association in your town or in your country, in order to help to give the strength to your association to have a voice when things are developing. Only with this strength and with that voice you can do a lot. What are the issues that are on the table? As I told you, this is the unemployment or employment opportunities. If I'm not wrong, this is the case also for Albania, but also health issues, social security, undeclared work. That is one of the most problematic things. So if you are working, as we call it in Serbian, will be in gray zone. I'm sure that this is something that you are using, this literally translated, that you are using in your language also, then you are much more dependent than if you are officially employed. That is one of the perils of being employed in our region. So my suggestion would be to be bold when protecting your interest, but you cannot do it by yourself, only in the association of your peers. That means your colleagues from the university, from the working space, or in your town.
Thank you, Ms. Tanja.
Bashkim, please unmute.
Anna has a question, I think, for both professors. So please, Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. I am a high school student. I'm 16 years old. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I've actually got two questions that correlate to each other. And the first one is, traditionally, unemployment and inadequate pay hits some groups harder than others, like Indigenous people, people of color, females, teenagers, the elderly. How can we build policies that prevent this kind of segregation? And my second question that correlates to the first is, how can we close the wage gap, which is clearly very present, especially in my region? And is there any action being taken to repair this problem?
First.
Bashkim, should we collect questions or should we collect questions? Maybe some other have questions, or do you want me to respond to this question?
One by one, let's.
One by one, okay. Well, thank you very much. Both are very important question. One, of course, it's about. I'll start with that one, with participation, and I think that the crucial thing is to avoid infantilization. So infantilization is to speak about the youth exactly in the terms of something that's it's immature, not mature enough, not experienced enough, not capable of actually creating policies, but also politics. Of course, not politics only understood as we say in the region, politica, which usually means people in, gray suits, parties and stuff like that, but politics in general. And also there is a danger of self-infantilization. At one point when everybody treats you that you can't do anything, then you start treating yourself that you actually cannot change anything, that you don't want to get involved, that some want to remain pure by living in some bubbles. We have a problem, of course, that the group of 18 to 25 is been out of all political processes, and that's quite a problematic thing. But what we saw when with the student movements, but also the commons movement, the right to the city movement, that when the mobilization happened, and when people actually join hands and then learn what does it mean, what is a collective action and how to respect each other, and of course learn the rules of internal democracies, that we have extraordinary results. Number one, the level of discussion that someone who is 21 could have is equally or even better than what those who are older could have, because we've been surrounded by platitudes of the political rhetorics and also by very empty and shallow ideas coming from academics as well. So be critical of them, and be critical of this idea that there is someone who can actually teach you. We saw what these intellectuals did in our region. Yeah, we saw how they've been behind the worst things by giving these false ideas, spreading them across the society by using their social capital of members of academy and stuff like that. So it's important to be critical, it's important to think, and it's important to take yourself seriously. This is your life. And of course, to expect that somebody will give it on a plate, all these solutions, of course, it's not going to happen. So there is a way to participate. There's a lot about social engagement and activism. It could be art activism. It could be simply action-based activism. It could be joining various social movements and be ready, of course, to develop by doing action, to learn, to reflect, to think, and of course, to always do it with the others. We are not alone, and we have to relearn out of these narcissistic, individualistic ways of life that they've been throwing at us. Just treat yourself as an enterprise and a firm. Invest in you and only about you. We have to now again learn what solidarity is. So I think that potential, for me at least, is there, and this is where you know I could learn a great deal as well. Now you ask Anna, you ask very concrete questions. You are right that we can design beautiful policies, and this is what we often do without seeing social reality. Yeah? So if you are Roma, or if you are a person of color or disabled, or if you belong to sexual minorities, well, sometimes these people are not going to participate, will be discriminated by this generality of laws and policies. But it is a tricky thing, and of course, awareness of inclusion is extraordinarily important. And you also ask about the gender gap in pays. This is a reality of so-called how they call them, developed Western societies. This is a reality there, and let alone in our societies that are even furthermore patriarchal. Or we're gonna see very strange things happening, such as if you see where the number of female scientists, actually in Eastern Europe, it's much greater number of female scientists than in the Western Europe. The reason for that, of course, we are happy to see that because it shows some sort of equality. But the reason for that also has to do with patriarchal thinking. Scientific, academic employments, teachers, and so on are seen as female jobs. You can't earn money and drive a Porsche or whatever by being a professor at the university. Those are seen as belonging to women. So there's a lot that we have to struggle against to get to the true equality, and not just numbers, and not just putting quotas and putting one woman here or another there, and then falsely claim that actually we solved the problems. There is a huge deal of struggle there. So that's my answer. Maybe not direct to your questions, but a rather more general one.
Yep. May I jump in? First, thank you, Anna. Really appreciate the fact that you are only 16, but still highly interested. That's the way that things are doing. So, as I said, finishing my introductory part of speech is actually that we are ready to listen to you, to your ideas also. A part of what Professor Štiks said, that there are some suggestions how to overcome some of the issues, but it's the most important thing to listen the obstacles that you are facing with, your way of thinking how to overcome the obstacles. And that's why we are connecting, our youth lab project, RCC, we are connecting youth councils all around the region in order to listen, are the problems the same in your society or in other societies? And mainly they are the same problems. They are sharing the problems, which is on one hand bad. That means that things are not developing properly, and that is a problem of running the state as such. But on the other hand, is also good, because when we find out what might be the solution of the problem, it can be applied. I'm not saying copy pasted in each and every of the situation, but can be applied. We also recognize the need to help for the women, for the female part of our society. Not because of being that other part of the society, but because women are 52% of the Western Balkan as a region. 52% of the capacity of the region. If you do not employ them, use that capacity, it's not good for the region as such. In that respect, we are helping with in their way to build their businesses, empower them as the businesswoman, but also creating a network of the female researchers. Believe me, as being myself a female researcher, that is a very powerful and a useful tool that we could always use. But some of the groups which need also inclusion, starting with Roma, is extremely important. There I can see a lot of potentials for working with the young Roma in our society. We have problems which are different than for the rest of the society. They do not have majority of our Roma people living together with us, side by side with us. They do not have their IDs. They are not enrolled in the schools, and therefore they could not expect, or they could not have the same possibility as we are having, which is a great problem. But bottom line, all of those issues can be solved or overcome with the joint action of us working within the universities and faculties, us within the national authorities, but also regional activity, as I am telling right now, and the regional connectivity, which is an extremely important thing. But without listening to you, there is no possibility of success. Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you. Any other question from the attendants? Okay, I have certain questions. First of all, comment what Igor Štiks said about critical thinking. That's why I think it is important to learn not only what is considered market-oriented, business, public relations, and such things, but also humanities, not only technical things. Because by humanities, we learn, and by connecting, by linking the humanities to economy, we learn to think critically. All of us, during all our life. Now, to Professor Miščević, I would address something related to what you said about the inner integration of the region with the view to integration in the European Union, the freedom of circulation of people and a common inner market, etc. Now, what do you think about the role of cultural exchange between the nations of the region in this respect, for the integration and for going forward together? Because there are many initiatives in different countries about and many programs for intercultural cooperation, regional intercultural. And I've been working in some of them and knowing some of them, and they are interesting. What do you think about the role of cultural dialogue in the region in this respect of the integration?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Igor, you.
Okay. Bashkim, I thank you for this comment and stressing the point of critical thinking, which is of course not criticizing, but being critical by thinking and trying to understand various arguments and trying to understand how ideas work and trying to understand certain phenomena, social, economic, cultural, and so on. So this is what, of course, is an important thing in every education. And of course, I definitely advocate the role of humanities in the education. Now, the thing is that, of course, a lot of academia move towards this business-oriented model, or something that has a huge value, and we can see often with parents as well. Of course, parents are worried about what kids are going to do tomorrow, so they are more ready to invest into something that sort of has a value, or sort of could be chipped in relatively quickly by finding, say, a well-paid job. So we cannot blame them. Well, what turned out, of course, to be a well-known fact is that the best traders, so people who do this job of shifting money around, actually have a degree either in history or philosophy and so on. So now we can use this argument also against those who only advocate this kind of instrumental way of thinking. You need to understand history and societies and philosophy in order to be a good trader, in order to be a good accountant, in order to actually be a great designer. Susan Sontag once famously said that a writer should actually, read in the morning a novel, in the afternoon something else, then listen to music, then go to a demonstration, and in the evening go to a theater and visit a museum if he can. Well, she wanted to say that he or she as a writer needs to draw inspiration from various sources, but I think it applies to all, to us all, to everyone, not only just for us writers. It actually applies because it gives us inspiration in what we do, and greatest thing of all is that it's not instrumental, that sometimes certain ideas will come from unknown places. So if there is something I could say now to this audience of obviously engaged people, is this: just take from everywhere and simply be open up to various sort of experiences and ideas. They're gonna help you with solving even the practical problems, or also private and intimate problems such as love relationships, emotional relationships, that adds, of course, the important layer of complexity to our lives.
Okay.
Yeah, on cultural exchange. Without any question, cultural exchange is the basis for creating the understanding, connecting people, finding out how close we are in terms of the background and in terms of our national developments during the past, but also in present. And it is the basis for understanding and also creating trust. All of those elements are basics, are the foundation for the solid regional cooperation or even integration. That's why even our cross-border cooperation project goes into the direction of the cultural exchange. Those are the small projects that are provided, funding was provided by the EU. But as we are proud of having Tirana as the youth capital, we are also very proud to have Novi Sad as the cultural capital of Europe for this year. Why? Because it has been recognized, the cultural specificity, not only of Novi Sad, not only of that part of Serbia or Serbia proper, but of the region. This is the message that goes to the European Union from the region. Ognjen and its Youth Policy Lab project are going to organize the discussion and exchange, because we don't want Tirana and Novi Sad to be the unique case, and then for a long time nothing in terms of the presentation from the region, but quite contrary, to learn what actually they presented during this year for the youth and the cultural capital of Europe, to other capitals in order to emphasize the importance of them running for those positions. So please stay in touch with them, with the Western Balkan Youth Policy Lab, for learning more on how we can promote the Western Balkan cultural heritage, but also exchange.
Thank you. I have another question related to the statistics, which was mentioned here, that the average unemployment is 35.1%, the youth unemployment in the region, the double of that of the European Union. Now, there is another statistics which seems meaningful to me. 7.2% is average employment rate for youth with low level of education, less than half of the EU. So this is excepting Albania, where there is no statistics. Now, it takes us, or it makes me think on the quality of employment, because it's not only, we have the figure, the global figure, that such is employment, such is unemployment. Now, the quality of this small figure of employment, what is it? What is the quality of employment of youth, which have this level of low level of education? Do they have fixed contract, or do they have very temporarily, as they are having here in Spain now after the financial crisis?
Is it for me? Well, I cannot give you the details. I'm not in this respect or numbers, and it's difficult also what numbers mean. I think this gray zone applies to a lot of people. One thing that kept the social peace in these countries is related to two things. One, it's housing. And the fact that people mostly own their apartments. They usually got by working during socialist times, and then they managed to buy them off. The second thing is the international remittances, so that the cousins, daughters, sons, or relatives are sending money. So that kept the social peace, because I'm not sure how people could survive with 200 euros of pension, living in places that are as expensive as Belgrade is becoming, for instance, and some other places in the Balkans. Therefore, very often what happened that pensions of grandmothers and grandfathers also provide some pocket money for their grandsons and granddaughters. So the situation is, in this respect, it's quite difficult. So you got this kind of flexibility in the worst way. Occasional jobs, temporary jobs, precarity, and then of course some sort of a community support. But obviously, and we've been talking about this today, this is not the way to improve situation. Not only to improve, but with this you cannot really plan. You cannot really plan the future. And of course, a lot of young people know this. And as I said, there's a lot of these sad stories that are related to the youth being forced to emigrate. But it's not only story of going to Austria and Germany, or in the Croatian case, Ireland. It is also the story of going to Dubai, to going to the Gulf, to going to big cruisers and so on, in order to amass a bit of money that might get you from point A to point B or a couple of months. Obviously, this doesn't give you a huge perspective. And after a couple of years of not having perspective and doing these sort of jobs, some other problems arise, such as depression or anxiety and so on, and the sense of trap. So behind these numbers, obviously, there's a lot lot of human stories, and some of which involve, let's say, as they like to call use this word, resilience or creativity. But creativity and resilience in what? In surviving really under really bad circumstances. Of course, I'm not speaking here about, say, 5 to 10% of the youth that might have a more secured future by their parents, by the property they inherited. But these people obviously have a different agenda that is dissociated from society. So what the rich do is they send their kids into private schools, and they send their kids to bad schools, and they send their kids abroad, and then these kids, if they come back, they're going to secure themselves a really good jobs.
We have 1 more minute, but 2 questions. I don't know what to do. One question is, we know that there are several organizations about involving youth. Which are the ways to involve more in youth organizations? It can be sent by writing, I think. They sent to me, and I sent to these people. Then another question is, let me see. How can youth regional organizations contribute in preventing the youngster from leaving their countries? This is the next topic, dear Claudiana, that we will have the next issue. For the next session, we have this discussion about brain draining and the causes, and then another question just came, but they come late. What is your opinion about Open Balkan? Do you estimate that all countries will join? How will this impact the economy and employment? Do we have time, dear host, for this question? To briefly.
Sure, for us everything is all right. You decide.
Okay, so please, Tanya.
One thing, if you let me just to go, and I think that Ognjen actually respond, because I send a message not to waste time, how to connect and how to help to the national youth councils in terms of doing their job. And I will try to answer to the question of the Open Balkans. I put the emphasis here on the common regional market, as it is the all-inclusive, that means Western Balkan 6, participating there for freedoms, advancing, creating the regional market. At some point, Open Balkan, and it used to be mini Schengen, appear why it was the reason of the political issues, not being able to finalize some of the deals and agreements. So what would be the answer? Of course, that we cannot be against any type of the regional integration. Each and every moment that brings and expand the possibility of cooperation and even integration of our region is a good moment, is the positive thing, something to support. But it's equally important to have all-inclusive, all of them to participate, all 6 of them to participate, because it cannot be half regional cooperation and integration. It will not bring the fruits and the results as it is the full one. Maybe the best possible way is to connect those regional initiatives, to make the bridge between them, to try to overcome the obstacles that exist. There is a lot of other issues to discuss, but this is also for some other discussion, especially dedicated to this issue. But thank you very much for being interested in this.
Okay, thank you very much to Professor Miščević, to Professor Štiks, to all the attendants. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope, and we will try that the next time to have more people to participate and to be present. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your attendance and for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.